Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. I'm Mike Kenichi, and I'm excited because we've probably waited 2 years to try to do this, and we are finally going to get it done. I'm honored and privileged to have on today former Derby wrestler, Derby captain, 1995 state champion, the one and only Rick Cassini. And Rick, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's quite an honor.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
So, Rick, let me ask you this. I'm sure as a young kid, wrestling wasn't on your radar yet. You played like all three sports as a kid. You played football, basketball, baseball. What was the sport you gravitated towards the most as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, didn't even know wrestling existed, right? So I went to St. Michael's and St. Mary's, and I played all the sports that were available: baseball, basketball, football. It's really, kind of all we had. The one sport that I probably gravitated to the most, I would say, was football.
Right.
I enjoyed that the most. At a young age. To be quite honest, I wasn't very good at baseball or basketball,
Right.
but I played anyways. And and looking back, I think just playing and putting yourself out there is the most important thing.
Right. And how did you get interested in sports? Did your parents just decide to sign you up? Did you have a love for anything as a kid? Did you like watching anything on TV, or was it just the case where like most parents, they sign their kids up for basketball, baseball?
Yeah, no, we weren't big sports families. The games would come on. It wasn't like we had to watch them. Occasionally we'd watch a game, but we weren't a big sports.
Right.
We weren't a big traditional sports family.
Right. So, you mentioned football, and I know you played several years at Pop Warner. What would you say? What grade did you start playing Pop Warner? Was it like fourth grade or fifth grade?
Oh, geez. Honestly, I mean, we were young, man.
Right.
And I remember all the coaches. Yeah, probably about fourth or fifth grade. That sounds
right. And Rick, high school, they don't do as much hitting in practice. They want to keep the kids fresh. They don't want to get them hurt and stuff. But in Pop Warner, you guys hit all the time. I mean, every night you were hitting. I mean, let me ask you, was it fun? Or, were there times where you just left practice and you're like, geez, every night I'm getting banged up?
We were having fun. We were, being kids. And,
right.
It was like, there weren't too many places where you could, be a kid and hit each other and get away with it. Right.
Right.
I enjoyed it, and in hindsight, I wish I had played in high school. But, when I was playing in Pop Warner, we had a lot of fun, man. And, and I think back to all the coaches, Jimmy Mascola and Mr. Robinson. And it was a great environment. We had a blast.
Right. And, that's the good thing about football too back then is, you had kids who went to Bradley School, you had kids who went to Lincoln School, yourself, I think you went to St. Mary's, St. Michael's. So you kind of got to meet different friends by playing Pop Warner. And, I think it was when you were in seventh grade, you guys were on a great junior midget team. I think you played for Coach Monahan.
Yeah.
And, you guys played for the championship that year against Ansonia. That was a very underrated team that you played on. I know like it's a long time ago, but just talk about playing on a great team like that. You had some great players like Joe Cabral, Kenny Cronk. Just talk about that team a little bit.
Yeah, we had, like you said, we had a great team. And in hindsight, had all those kids played, and myself included in high school. I don't know. Like maybe I would have been good in high school. I'm not sure, but my memory from what I remember, we were a feared team, and we hit hard.
Right.
And of all the hard hitters, I think Joe Cabral was probably one of the hardest hitters. I remember being afraid to, not wanting to go head to head with Joe Cabral because he hit hard. But we were having fun. Mo Monahan, we love Mo, especially when he would bring that ice cream truck out.
Yeah.
We love him even more.
Yeah.
But just great times.
Right. And you played middle linebacker, if I'm not
middle
mistaken.
Linebacker,
right.
Yeah.
and that's an important position. And, Chris Ruther Sr. used to always say that, like, you were the best when the running back, thought he had the hole, and you would just come out of nowhere and, kind of pancake him. I mean, how fun was it just to, play that position? Because, I mean, you make the majority of the tackles when you're playing that position.
Yeah. Again, in hindsight, it was, I wish I had played in high school. I enjoyed hitting people it was fun, right? Great sport, great position. Who do you remember who was the other middle linebacker with me?
I think it was Jason Marshall, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Me and Jason Marshall.
Yeah, and you were very good friends with Jay, and all through middle school and high school. So I mean, I'm sure there was the bond there just because you guys both played the same position and kind of had to, feed off each other.
Absolutely. No, Jay's a great person.
Right. So Rick, now you enter 7th grade at the Derby Upper School, and it's kind of funny because, again, wrestling still wasn't, you hadn't thought anything of it. And I think you played on the Derby Upper School team that year, basketball. So you were still kind of leaning towards basketball. Let me just ask you, how did wrestling come about for you? What made you decide to go out for it?
Oh, geez. It's a funny story, but I think, Larry Parentino, we grew up in the same neighborhood, and Larry showed up with these crazy looking shoes. And I'm like, Larry, what are these shoes? Like, oh, the wrestling shoes. I'm like, wrestling? We got a wrestling team? And that's when I looked into it. It's and I'm glad I did, because it's one of those sports. I think back, we really didn't have. Kids these days there's so many different options for sports. I mean, my son, he's playing lacrosse, and I mean,
right.
I didn't even know what lacrosse was. And I think we were very lucky to have a wrestling team, especially for such a small school, and having difficulty just fielding teams for baseball, football, basketball, your standard,
right,
all your standards. But yeah, and I'm thankful that we had the high school program, but especially the 8th grade program, which was a rarity in those days.
Yeah, and I think Coach Buster Jadek's assistant, Coach Joe DiMartino, kind of started that middle school program. And just talk about that. I mean, how would you say your first year as a wrestler went, and what was it like, learning under Joe?
Listen, Joe, special place in my heart for Joe and all the coaches that that coached us. Jeff Collins and Jeff Fernandez and all these guys. I right off the bat, I knew I was gonna enjoy wrestling. Because it was that same mental strength that you needed playing football, but it was just you out there. It was one-on-one. I excelled at it right away. And I enjoyed it,
Right. And, I think a group of you guys went out for the team. I think it was you, Alan Robert, Sean Kekax, PJ D'Angelo, Robbie Nacelli. So,
right.
I mean, Danny Ocado. So there was a good group of you guys that came out. And I think that was important because, Coach Jadek had a good group of kids that were going to be coming out for, when they were freshmen that year. And, Joe did a great job getting kids to come out for that program.
Yeah, he did. He was a young guy. We looked up to him. And we had some tough kids. Sean Kekax was tough.
Right.
And we lost some people, and some people stayed and some people left, but we had fun, and it was different. And we were in the old Lincoln High School, and and we were down there in that dungeon of in the school down there. And it was nice because, like you said, coming from Catholic school, I really didn't. Yeah, I knew some of the kids from playing football, but it was just another way to get to further immerse yourself in the school, especially being, first year in public school. So,
Right. And now that first year, Rick, what weight? I mean, it was a middle school team, but what weight class did you wrestle that first year?
Jeez, I don't know. Do you know?
Uh,
If you told me, I'd agree with you. So
right. I'm thinking maybe 105-pound weight. I'm not
you,
sure,
you
but
might be right. I mean, I'm looking through my old records, and I think my freshman year was 119, and I didn't gain that much weight. Over those 5 years. I look back. I mean, I gained weight, but I was wrestling at low weight classes. So
right now, do you
112, I think 112, 112.
112? Yeah. Now, do you remember your first meet, like what it was like, or I mean, how did you? What was your feeling like that first meet? I mean, you're a first time wrestler. You're going against maybe a kid who might have some experience. Do you remember anything that stands out to you, or was it just not really that memorable?
No, I don't. I don't remember my first wrestling match. I can remember being in the Lincoln school,
Right.
and parents sitting up in the stands there. And I can remember, the feeling, but no particular match. But I mean, we were well prepared.
Right.
We had good coaches, and Joe made it fun. Um,
Right. Now, Rick, let me ask you, did you go to any varsity meets that year just to kind of see what that was like? I mean, did Coach Joe encourage you guys to check out the varsity meets that season?
oh yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
And we looked up to all the older guys. Um, I'm looking through these past few days. I've been looking through old books and programs from wrestling banquets and all these old names that like the Calverts
Right.
and
Dimitri. Yeah.
Dimitri and
Yeah. I think
just
Rob Scarduzio. I mean, there were a bunch of guys. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's just so many names. You know, uh, I could go on with all the names and all of them that very fond memories. But just going and watching the older guys wrestle, it's the same thing like when you're in Pop Warner and you're going to the high school games and you look up to these guys.
Right.
So yeah.
Now, Rick, towards the end of your eighth grade year, your wrestling career almost, there was some uncertainty about it because you suffered a very freak injury. It was a freak. It was a freak accident at Bradley School.
Yeah.
Never forget it. Talk about that injury a little bit because I think you and your friend were just, playing softball, tossing the ball, and you got whacked right in the nose with a softball. So just talk about that injury a little bit.
Yeah. So that was Alan Robert and and
Right.
I think it was after a softball game, and we went out on the field and we're throwing around the softball, and I threw it to Alan, and he didn't hit it, and he said, "Come on, keep throwing the ball," and I threw it, and he caught it, and he hit it really good, and I didn't catch it. I caught it with my face. I didn't see it coming, and it broke my eye socket and in my nose,
And you were hemorrhaging too, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
it was really a scary thing.
I remember. It's funny how you remember all these small details. But Miss Pivarata had tissues in her. She happened to be there and watching the game, and she had tissues in her pocketbook, and she gave them to me. So I never got a chance to thank Miss Pivarata for those tissues, but thank you, Mrs. Pivarata.
Right. And it's funny too, Rick. I remember years later she had told the story about that incident, and she said, because I think she had to bring you to the hospital, it was crazy. And as you're getting out of the car, here you are bleeding like crazy and you're in constant pain, and
Yeah.
you're halfway into the emergency door and you realize you didn't thank her. So you run back to the car and you thank her for driving you. I mean, how the heck did you have that in your mind to even remember
Is that what she said? She said that happened?
Yeah, that's what she
now see, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, that's probably, your memory is probably fuzzy. But, Rick, the thing of that injury was doctors, I think at first told you probably weren't going to play sports for a while. And I know you wanted to play football, and they had to get you a special mask. I mean, talk about that mask. I think you had to wrestle with that, and I think you hated wearing that, right?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, Mike, you show me one person that liked wrestling with that mask, and I'll call show me a liar. But I remember that mask was terrible. I think they've got better masks now, but my nose was always broken.
Right.
And it would, every season it would be broken multiple times, and I do remember Richie Calvert had to wear the mask too. He broke his nose a lot. So at least, and being a younger guy looking up to the older guys, it was kind of okay because Richie was a good wrestler. We looked up to him. He wore the mask, so it made it a little better. But it was awkward.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it had to be hard to wrestle in that too. I mean, were you able to breathe okay in that thing? I mean, it looked like the most uncomfortable thing you could ever wear.
Yeah, it looks kind of, like a medieval torture device or something. But your peripheral vision is reduced pretty significantly. So, and yeah, I mean, you're at a disadvantage wearing that mask. You need to have your peripheral vision to see what's going on. But it's I do it right.
Now, let's talk about the 1991-1992 season. It's your freshman year. You're wrestling on the varsity, and I think you wrestled varsity freshman year, correct?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Right, and just talk about that a little bit. I mean, what was it like being a part of that team? Were you little? And you don't seem like the type of guy that gets intimidated by anything. I mean, again, if you could survive that broken nose, you could survive anything. But just talk about being at the varsity level. I mean, the practices were a little more intense. And that's the thing too, Rick. You guys practiced 4 hours every night to stay in the proper shape you needed to be. I mean, just talk about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was, for an 8th grader, and now you're a freshman, and now you're in the big leagues and you're wrestling varsity. It was a privilege, right? And I remember, I think was it Jeremy Skiff? Wrestle offs and my overall, and I had a good record. I'm looking at my stats here, and I had a good record, and it was, and I did well, and we enjoyed it. Practices were tough, and it was one, some of the most memorable moments from practice. I remember like on snow days, we if it was a snow day, it didn't mean you didn't practice. Like Buster would find other things for us to do, and one of the things I remember us doing was we would go into Osborndale, the whole team, and we would run. I don't know. Have you ever heard these stories?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Rich Froley's told me a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we would go into the woods as a team and jog through the woods and knock down dead. I'm going to call them dead trees. I don't want DEP to come after us or anything, but for doing that in state property. But and we would gang up on a tree and knock a dead standing tree over as a team. And I think back to all these experiences. They were just great team building experiences, and we were lucky to have them and the coaches that facilitated it.
Right. Now, Rick, I've heard some crazy stories about what people have to do to get their weight down, but I'll tell you right now, I mean, yours takes the cake. Never mind spitting, because a lot of wrestlers do that, but eating fried tomatoes and running around in plastic wrap, a plastic bag or whatever is crazy. And
I don't know where you got the fried tomatoes thing. Who told you that?
Your mother, Linda, told me.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't remember the fried tomatoes, but I listen. It's temporary, and we're just talking.
Right.
It was on a rare occasion, right? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
If
you stress over that a lot though, trying to keep your weight to where you needed it to be.
I was fortunate. I mean, you have to watch what you eat. You can't eat garbage, and and I think back, and yeah, I mean, you're conscious of it, but I don't think we ever did anything that was unhealthy. And if you had to drop a pound, before weigh-in, you could drop that pretty quickly. But overall, it was nothing. we wouldn't do anything extreme to lose weight. So
Right. Now, Rick, one of the things you did your sophomore year is you went out for cross country to try to be in good shape for wrestling. And, Joe Mazzanti, he's crazy with his workouts. Some of them were, legendary. But would you say going into the wrestling season, you were like in the best shape you probably have ever been in by doing the cross country?
Absolutely. Muzzy would make us run. He would, we'd do the warm up, and then we would have the race, and then we would have the cool down, and the cool down would be just as long as the race. And I remember saying to him one time, we were at a meet, and some time had passed since we actually ran the race, and he said, "All right, it's time for cool down." I go, "Joe, I'm already cooled down. I don't need to run anymore. I'm pretty cool right now." So
right.
He chuckled, and then he said, "All right, get out there and go running." But it was, I was thankful for that, for cross country. It got me in great shape. Stamina is, look, I wasn't the strongest wrestler out there. I wasn't the most skilled, but I had great stamina. And, it's this trifecta of different abilities. And I had great stamina, and I could outlast a lot of guys going into that third period.
Right.
And it was a huge benefit.
Right. Now, Rick, what would you say was your strongest suit of wrestling? I know, Robbie Nacelli used to tell me his biggest strength was, he was able to, overpower his opponent a lot. What would you say was the thing that, did you try to wear your opponent down, try to beat him on points? What was your mindset going in each meet?
Yeah. You never really knew. Cause every match is different. You could wrestle somebody the week before, and they can beat you, and you wrestle them the week after, and it's a totally different match. But I would try to you come out the gate, you feel your opponent out, and you see what they're like, and I knew that my stamina would, if I could get somebody into the third period, there was no doubt in my mind that I had better stamina than my opponent, just because, from all the conditioning that we did,
right.
And all the stuff that, we would do in off season and, on your own, all the prep work. So yeah, strength wise, I don't know. I think back, I didn't think I was one of the strongest, people in my weight class or in my division. There were people a lot. You mentioned, I think you mentioned Danny Ocado before.
Right.
Danny Ocado, he was like freakishly strong.
Right.
I would wrestle him, and I'm like, damn, how can you be so strong? So yeah, I know I wasn't the strongest, but I had really good stamina, and just like a sheer determination. So.
Right. Now, Rick, sophomore year, you had a pretty good year. You continued to get better and better. Would you say by sophomore year, you really felt confident that, you were a pretty good wrestler and you could go far with this sport?
Oh yeah, no, it was at that point I had decided I wasn't playing, football or baseball or basketball or, I knew for sure I wasn't playing baseball. I wasn't picking up another baseball. Didn't want to go anywhere near another baseball.
Right.
Yeah, that was my sport. And, we would do off-season tournaments, and it was a big family, and all the parents. I remember going to tournaments with the Mercutios and Buster
Right.
and Mrs. Jodick, and it was just, that's what we did, and and my parents, we were fortunate. We would go to these out-of-state tournaments, and I think back, and it was very grateful for it.
Right. And, Rick, one of the things you just mentioned the Marcuscio brothers, one of the things that was really, cool, and it just talks about the team concept that you guys all had is, if you guys had a kid who won a state title and he was going to the Open and stuff, you had a kid like Mike Marcuscio in 8th grade who would help one of those kids train for the Open, run with him and work out with him just to keep him fresh. Because, that's important too. You got to have somebody to work with when you're, going to wrestle in the open.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the old saying, "Steel sharpens steel," right? So,
Right.
yeah, I think back to, Mike and I, we would wrestle. Mike's an incredible wrestler. One of the best to ever come out of Derby. Danny Ocado, Danny would give me a run for my money. He was an incredible wrestler. And we had all these great wrestlers that, and steel sharpens steel, and we had fun doing it. And I just, I think that, I'm having all these memories come to me now as I'm talking about it. I just remember leaving practice totally soaked with
right.
sweat because, and you felt good. It was a good time.
Right. And, like I said, the practices were intense. People always talk about how Jeff Collins used to have you guys in that weight room and, he'd have you you'd be bench pressing and he'd have you hold it down until he told you to lift it back up. So, I mean, these coaches always kept you guys, in good shape. And, I'm sure at the time you were like, God, why are they killing us like this? But looking back, I mean, it's why you guys were so successful at this sport.
We were lucky. Yeah, you mentioned Jeff Collins. Jeff's an incredible human being. And I think back, right? These guys were giving up their time. Jeff didn't have, his son wasn't wrestling. There was
right.
nothing like that. It was just, he wanted to give back. And I think back, and after a long day of work, it's incredible that that these guys and you don't think about it at that time, right? But I'm so thankful to all of them: Jeff Collins, Joe DiMartino, Buster.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right. And, these guys always looked out for you guys. They were big on that, even though, they had to be hard. All coaches are hard on kids, but they do it for a reason. It's definitely because, there's a purpose to it. Let me ask you this, Rick, would you say was there anybody that, challenged you for your spot in that team that you had to week in and week out go against to keep your spot on the team?
I was pretty fortunate. I didn't have. I never lost my varsity. I think my freshman year, but I was a freshman, right? So I think I was challenging Jeremy Skiff, but my sophomore, junior, senior, it was, and we would, there was a group of us. We were all in the same kind of weight classes. Michael Mercutio, Kenny Mayer, another great wrestler, Danny Ocado, Brian Woodward, and we would kind of, it was kind of like, at the beginning of the year, you talk amongst yourselves and you figure out who's going to maybe lose 3 pounds and down, or who's going to wrestle up a little bit, because we were a small team and we needed to. You have to fill your team. It's, we weren't like a Danbury where you had, a two JV squads behind you. So, we made it work and it worked out every year. So.
Right. And now let me ask you, did the nose ever affect you throughout your career, or were you able to, wrestle through that without any issues?
Yeah, no, the nose, it still bothers me to this day. So.
Right. It's crazy.
It was perpetually broken. So.
Right. So, Rick, one of the things, I think I know the answer to this because I'd be shocked if you didn't. Did you ever watch the movie Vision Quest at all?
Oh, come on, that's like the Holy Grail, Mike.
Yeah.
I remember Coach Joe DiMartino telling us that it was an order, like it was an instruction. We had to go home and watch it, and you're like, Vision, what is this? What is this Vision Quest? And you watch it, and it's a good movie.
Right. Now, the goal had to be at some point, Rick, that you wanted to be a state champion. I think that's every kid's dream, obviously. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think as early as 9th grade, Coach Joe DiMartino said you are going to be a state champion someday. I mean, when he said it at the time, did you really believe it could be possible?
Yeah. I mean, he told me. I remember him telling me that. And who knows, Mike? Maybe if he didn't say that, who knows? Did he plant the seed? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe he was a little prophetic. I don't know.
Right. So let's talk about your junior year, because individually you had some great accomplishments, but team wise, the team had one of the greatest seasons in Derby history. I believe you guys were 18-0. And
Yeah.
just talk about that junior team, because you guys were all a cohesive unit. I mean, you guys stuck together. And that's the one thing, Rick, I'm looking at all these pictures, and I mean, I'll see pictures of you with Robbie Nacelli, the Marcuscio brothers, Danny, Chris Perillo, all these guys. That's one thing about you guys, is you guys were a team. You guys, were there for each other time and time again.
Yeah, that was a great year, and I think I'm trying to remember. I think that was a year that snowed a lot. So maybe we had
Yes. Yeah.
some meets that were canceled. So that 18-0 record, was it facilitated by some of these snowstorms? I don't know. But regardless, a win's a win, right? So 18-0 it is. But yeah, listen, we were a family, small town, Derby, right? And
Right.
you look at, I mean, there's only so many males in the high school, and we all got along, and it was nice. We were a family. We looked out for each other.
Right.
And I remember even in practices, we would wrestle up, and I would wrestle Robbie Nacelli, and
Right.
Robbie Nacelli would wrestle, some of the smaller guys, and that's what we did, and it was good because you learn how to, obviously if you're a smaller person and you relied on your strength against somebody in the same weight class, well, that's not going to work.
Right.
If you're wrestling somebody who weighs a little more. So yeah, we were, I think back, those were special times. We had fun.
Right. And in 1994, Rick, you were the runner-up at the Derby Invitational. So I mean, you were knocking on the door. There was no doubt about it. And I believe you finished fourth place in the Class S in 1994. So to finish in the top 5, that was a great accomplishment. I mean, like I said, you just have to go out there and do it. You can't say, okay, next year I'm going to do it. But I'm sure after your junior season, you said, you know what, next year it's state champion or bust.
Yeah, it was, a little bit of it was maybe luck, I guess, but I do remember how focused I was, and single-minded.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking back at some of the pictures that, my parents have scrapbooked, and I can see I can see my face in these pictures, and immediately I'm like, I can feel those same feelings, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember being just very, very focused.
Right. Rick, I want to switch gears just a little bit. Two people that were very important to you in your life were your grandparents, and
Yeah.
you had that special bond with them. They were very important to you. And just talk about them, because I mean, they just took pride in seeing everything that you did time and time again. And I mean, they were always there too.
Yeah. So we were lucky. My grandparents, you would, after school, you go over to Graham and Graham's house, right?
Right.
And my grandfather would drive me to every practice. He would take me everywhere. He loved that. So hold on, I'm going to plug my computer in here. My computer's dying.
Right.
Yeah, just special, very special people. So it was nice. I always have those memories.
Right. And, one thing too, Rick, about your grandfather is when you had that nose injury, he got you the shades so you could kind of cover it up for your 8th grade dance and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, these people were always supportive. And, sometimes, people don't realize, grandparents play a big part, because they don't have to be the disciplinarians. They could be the good cop, and they could just kind of, they could be your friend too. And that's really what those two were, throughout your life.
Yeah, they were special people. Very special people.
Right. So now, Rick, senior year, you're elected one of the four captains, and I don't, you probably expected it, but at the same time, it's always an honor when your teammates, because they have to vote for you. It's always an honor to know that people think that highly of you, that they elect you captain. Just talk about what that felt for you to be chosen as one of the captains.
Yeah, it's a responsibility. And you're almost like a secondary coach to the younger kids, and I hope that I fulfilled my responsibilities and helped out the younger guys.
Right.
I hope. I think I did. It's a good responsibility, right?
Right. Rick, your senior year, and again, you guys played different teams out of league because there wasn't a lot of teams in the Hoosie, obviously, but Derby entered the SCC. So just talk about Derby switching leagues and going against some of the SCC teams. I know you guys went up against Han. That was a pretty good team. Just talk about what that was like. I mean, you guys obviously love a challenge and you weren't, fazed by it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, and we spoke about this just a few minutes ago, but Derby's a small school, and I think we did, with Buster coaching us and Joe, and I look back at the numbers that we had. I think we did. We did a great job,
Right.
and we did as best we could. So
Yeah. So Rick, your senior year, the regular season record, you were 19-3, which is just, remarkable. I think you had about 15 pins, 25 takedowns, 25 near falls. And, you're still in the top 10 for season near falls in the Derby record book, which is just amazing. Yeah.
I was wondering that because I'm looking at my programs here and I'm like, I wonder if I'm still in these records. So near falls is all I got.
Well, as far as the Derby record book goes, yes, but I mean that's still
Right.
a heck of an accomplishment. But talk about the 19-3 record, because I mean that is an unbelievable year, and it's almost like you could kind of sense that the 5 years of doing this is finally starting to pay off for you.
Yeah. I mean, so I think one of my losses was to Jason Asaro, who I ended up meeting again in the finals at the States.
Right.
In Hand, and I lost to Hand and Nanawag. I think I'm looking at my records over here. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of, you see the same, you go to tournaments and you see the same faces. And every once in a while you see a new face, but yeah, I mean, it was a good season. And when I lost to, so I think I wrestled Jason Asaro twice before meeting him, and in the finals again. And the first time I think I lost to him, right?
Right, I believe so. Yeah. And then,
yeah. Or no, one of them I won one and he won one, so it was a very close.
Right. And he was a good wrestler too. He was very good.
He was a lot stronger. I think back to what I remember about him was that he was incredibly strong, a lot stronger than I was.
Right. And, one of the tournaments you did win, though, before, obviously the Class S's, you did win the Stafford Tournament.
Yeah.
Just talk about that tournament a little bit.
Yeah. So I think at the Stafford, that's where I beat him. So Jason Asaro beat me the first time, and and I think was that at the Derby Invitational?
Yeah, I think it might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking. I think I took second to him at the Derby Invitational, and then at the Stafford Invitational, I beat him 6-5.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we had this little rivalry going, and that's a good thing, right? So
right, definitely. And that senior team too. it was just such a great group of guys. I mean, they really worked hard. I could look back, Robbie Nacelli. I mean, that Cheshire kid, I forget his name, and I do apologize, but he was one of the best, unlimited wrestlers in the state. And Robbie Nacelli knocked him off twice that year. So, I mean, just tremendous accomplishment.
It's funny. You don't when you're wrestling. When you're a kid and you're wrestling, you really don't focus on other people's stats.
Right.
You think about yourself. But I've been going through these, some of these stats. Robbie Nacelli, he had an excellent, not just the senior year, 4 years.
Yeah, he was all area junior year. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it. He did a great job.
Right. Yeah, he was. The thing about Rob is Rob was always a hard worker. I mean, he worked hard in every sport he played. Same thing with Danny Ocado. That those guys, like, that's what I mean too, is I think you guys brought out the best in each other. And, it doesn't happen alone. Yes, you win a state title, but without these guys that practice every day, pushing you, supporting you, that doesn't happen. So, I know when you did win it, a part of you knows they are a big reason why you did.
Absolutely. I mean, with such a small team, I mean, you can't do any of that stuff by yourself. I mean, like I said, the old saying, steel sharpens steel. I mean, we would these practices that, we would push each other through, in the drills and the conditioning, and, and we were there for each other. And I think back, I remember, you would wrestle and your match would be over. And if you won, that was great. And if you lost, you get to be upset for a little while, you lick your wounds, but then, the rule was you come back and you cheer your teammates on. And,
right.
and I don't think everybody did it because they wanted to. It wasn't like anybody had to be forced back to cheer on their team. Everybody legitimately wanted to see everybody else do well, and that's a good feeling.
Right. Rick, it's nice to have fans, and obviously you had a lot of your classmates, a lot of your friends cheering you on, but you had 3 fans that always stood out to me. I'm going to start one with your sister, Jamie, who was a cheerleader at Derby High. And my God, it was almost like she was cheerleading in the wrestling meets, because nobody yelled louder during your meets like she did. Just talk about, the support she always gave you throughout your meets.
Yeah, I can still hear her. And I can hear, don't let him do that to you, Rick, or, some other, some other shout that you would hear from the stands. My family, obviously. What I remember too at the States, you talk about fans, but oh geez, just so many different people that would show up, and I remember Ronnie Leno.
Yes.
I remember at the States, Ronnie Leno. And I could hear him shouting for me from the stands, and I knew that it was Ronnie Leno,
right.
because he's got that distinctive voice, and he's loud, and I'm like, wow, Ronnie Leno is here to watch me, and he's cheering me on, and I'm like, that was a good feeling,
Right.
So that was nice.
Right. And
everybody else's parents, everybody's parents were there. Again, it was like a big family, so I can still hear Mr. Ocado, all these people that, they were like family members.
Yeah.
So.
And Rick, that's really what it was. It was, when I talked to your mom yesterday, she mentioned that, how it was so much fun every Saturday going to those meets. She lived for it. It was such a great thing. And that's really the thing too. The parents were very supportive of the wrestling team. And you need that too, because these kids sacrifice so much of their time that when the parents are doing everything they can for these kids, it plays a big part in it.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to let anybody else down. I think when you get to that level, right.
Yeah.
And you talk about, pushing each other. It's about not wanting to let your teammate down. And yes, it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport as well.
Right.
So.
And Rick, the next big fan of yours, without a doubt, and I just mentioned her, is your mother, Linda. And, if you look at all those pictures, Rick, you'll see pictures of you and your father, you and Jamie, and you don't really see her in a lot of the pictures. And there's a reason, because she took all the snapshots. She's the one who always had the camera. She's the one who recorded every game. I think of Mr. Cabral, Mr. Paque. They always recorded everything. Your mom always, she deserves a debt of gratitude from, the coaches, because she recorded everything.
Yeah. So you're not kidding. Listen, I'm going through, I asked her, I'm like, Mom, do you have any pictures or anything from when I wrestled? That Mike reached out to me. We want to do this interview. She said, yeah, I think I have some stuff. So, she came over the house with this big bag, and I'm looking through it, and I'm like, wow, you have all this stuff. Who saves this stuff? I have Mike, it's incredible. All these pictures I have, and
right.
every single person that I wrestled. And so, you don't appreciate that stuff when you're a kid, but looking back, you're like, my God. So, yeah, Mom, thank you.
Right. So, Rick, February 18th was historic in 1995 for a couple reasons. Number one, it was your 18th birthday. So now you were able to, vote, which was, historic, but it was also the day where you reached your highest milestone, your highest honor. You won the state title. I knew of one other person who did something on their birthday, and he pitched a no-hitter for Shelton on his birthday.
Yeah.
So for you to win a state title on your birthday, you can't ask for a better birthday present. I said to your mom last night, I don't think whatever they got you for your birthday would even matter. Like, winning that was you couldn't top that. Yeah.
It paled in comparison. Yeah, it was a good feeling, and I'm going through these pictures, and we had a cake, we're all staying in a hotel, and my parents had a cake for us, and I'm looking at the smiles on everybody's faces, all my teammates. And it was a good feeling.
Right. So take us through that, Rick. Take us through that whole day, like what you were thinking. I know it's, again, it's 26 years ago, but just take us through that feeling of that day, what it was like for you. Obviously you were nervous, but, just going through that, the, emotion of it all.
Yeah, listen, and again, this is probably that gets a little blurry with time. But, I just remember, feeling like it was, whatever was going to happen, it was up to me, and hopefully it was my birthday. So, I would have some, God would be with me here and give me a good birthday present. But it was a good feeling. Right.
So when, the match is over and you realize you won the Class S title, number one, your third biggest fan, I don't put them in order because all three of them are your biggest fans, but your father, Vic, came right out there, gave you a big hug. You could see emotion on him. I think tears were coming down his face. So, just talk about what that feeling was like when you realized it happened.
So listen, I have a picture of my father and I, and that might be one of my favorite pictures. Just him and I hugging. It's a nice picture.
Right.
Good feeling.
Right. And what did it feel like when you could see how proud he was, how proud Coach DiMartino was, and Coach DiMartino always told you it was going to happen. So did you say to him, thank you, Coach, like you were right, you believed in me?
Yeah, at that moment, I just remember, you really you talk about, for me, that match was like you said, the pinnacle, of my high school wrestling career, right? So I just remember coming off that mat, I was physically exhausted. I know,
right.
I wrestled I wrestled as hard as I possibly could. I didn't leave. I left it all on the mat, and thankfully I won. I just I remember I still had these pictures, and I'm looking at at Buster. Buster's got me embraced, and then
Right.
and they're great pictures. It was a nice moment in time.
Right. And the to top it all off, you were named outstanding wrestler of that tournament. So I mean, to win the Class S title and then get that outstanding wrestler of the tournament. I mean, I know you're not the type of guy that likes to talk about yourself. You get a little embarrassed by that, but a part of you had to just be so proud of what you accomplished.
To be honest with you, I didn't even expect that.
Right.
I was more shocked. I was more shocked about the outstanding wrestler award. And it's an honor. It's a good thing. So.
Right. And Rick, you would wrestle in the open and you did well in that, but the wrestling career kind of comes to a close, and 4 years goes by quick. I mean, today is your 26th anniversary of graduating high school, which is just hard to believe. But I mean, did you look back to and be like, God, wow, this just went by so quick?
Absolutely. And I look now, and I've got my son. He's wrestling on a middle school team. We're in. He wrestles on the HK Adam Killingworth wrestling team, and
right.
And it's a good feeling to see him out there wrestling. And I had all these scrapbooks with all these old pictures, and we were sitting down last night and this morning and flipping through them, and I was showing them some old pictures that were in the newspapers, and old pictures from my parents took on the camera. And it's a good feeling, and it goes by quick. And I coached at a couple different schools when I was younger and I was teaching, and that was a good feeling. It's just the wrestling community, it's a great community. I don't think I look at other sports, and there's something definitely within the wrestling community, because that same sense of community that we had in Derby, I sense it here in Adam Killingworth when we go to matches, and the connectedness of the families, and I'm not sure that you get that with other sports.
Right. And you finished your career 92-32, which is just remarkable. I mean, that's an unbelievable record. And I'm sure, while you're proud of that record, you're more proud of the team record, to see the success the wrestling program had. And I mean, when you were there, an undefeated season, they would go on to win a few more state titles years later. I mean,
they were incredible. Yeah, with Mike Mercutio and Kenny Mayer and all.
Right. And that program was just you could put that program up against any program in the state. Those guys really ran a terrific program.
I listen, when we were out there wrestling, I honestly, I don't think I was doing it for myself. I was doing it for Buster and Joe, you're out there doing it for yourself, but you wanted to be, we looked up to all the older guys, Richie Calver and Eddie Calver, and all the great Mark Angeli. You talk about another rest. I mean, just incredible. And you wanted to be, you wanted these guys to know your name, right? And if they knew your name, that was a good feeling.
Right. And that program gave a lot of you guys confidence. I mean, you're the type of guy like that doesn't get, rattled or anything, but I mean, you're the guy in the spur of the moment went skydiving. You didn't care. You just said, I'm going to try it, and you didn't even care. And you just went, so it gave you guys confidence. And I think that's why so many of these guys are so successful in life, because if anything, it taught you two things, that program: confidence and commitment. And that's why you guys are so successful.
So first, that skydiving story, funny story. It was me and Mike Ridzi, and we went and we were going to do it, and it got canceled because of weather. So we did all the training, and then it rained. We left, And then we had to go back another day to do it. And that was when you start thinking, you're like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? But I did it anyways.
Yeah.
So, confidence or stupidity, I'm not sure. Maybe a good blend of both. But I learned more. I learned more from wrestling, and the coaches than I learned in anything in school. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I mean, it's the truth. And like you said, confidence and just running, if that's what you want, you can achieve it. Listen, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. And, sometimes I, you don't embody all of those traits, every single moment of your life, but you think back and you're like, wait a minute, this is what I was taught. And you can rise to the occasion. So.
Right. And, Rick, I just looking over some of those commercials you do for Unilever, your company. I mean, you just seem like the perfect spokesman. Like, you're so cool and collective, you're just great at like doing what you do. And I mean, it didn't just stop with wrestling with you. You got a degree at Southern. You were a teacher for 10 years and then you changed professions. That's not easy to do. So, I mean, one thing about Rick Cassini is he's not afraid to challenge himself.
No, I'm not. Thank you. That's one way of putting it, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. So, Rick, let me ask you before we go, what advice, I could use your son as an example. What advice would you give to him if he wants to go far with his wrestling career? What would you say he needs to do to make that happen?
Oh, geez. It's just try it as hard as you can. If you're going to do something, give it your all. Otherwise don't do it. But if you want to do something, and there's people out there that will help you. You can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. You got to believe in yourself first, I guess. Right.
Right.
That's 90% of it, and refusing to take no as an answer. And it's
right. Yeah. Well, Rick, this was an honor for me, and you're a classmate, so it's a big highlight for me to be able to do this. Known you for many years, and I just really applaud not only like for what you did in your wrestling career, but what you do in everyday life. I mean, you're an outstanding father, outstanding husband. I mean, you have basically, even though you were, great wrestler, you're an even better person. And I really just congratulate you, not only on your wrestling career, but also on what you're doing with your life, because you really are doing great things. And, you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That means a lot more to me than anything else. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, there you have it, folks. Rick Cassini's journey started in the winter of 1991. He came out for the wrestling team. He didn't know what to expect, but he came out of it, and look what he did throughout his career. He had a devastating injury that could have, been the end of his wrestling career very early, but he didn't let anything get in his way. He knows how to fight through adversity. He knows how to do what it takes to get to the top. Look at his wrestling career. Little by little, each year, he got better and better. And then in 1995, on his 18th birthday, he became a Class S state champion. That's pretty remarkable. All the hard work, all the dedication, all the commitment paid off. And it happened because he was willing to do whatever it took to be the best that he could be. In his life right now, he's doing tremendous things. He's raising 3 great kids. He's married to a wonderful person. And he's a big-time hotshot in Unilever on the commercials.
I don't know about that.
But Rick Cassini is definitely somebody who has impacted his town, impacted his community, and is the type of guy that, we are all proud of. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying goodbye, everyone.